why would you have to put a natural flavor in juice? And why would you have to concentrate it, which takes out all the, you know, all the pulp, all the possibility. Already, it reduces the health benefits by juicing because you reduce the fiber, you reduce the but to make it with concentrate. That's just unheard of. So that's what they do. That's the only way they can make more money by reducing the quality of the ingredient. This happens to all these big companies.
Welcome to the Fountain of Vitality podcast. I'm your host, LaMont Leavitt. In a world overflowing with noise, confusion, and distraction, we're here to cut through the clutter and explore bold, unique paths to a longer, healthier, and more vibrant life. Through candid conversations with business leaders, wellness experts, industry pioneers, and innovators, we'll uncover insights to help you discover your own personalized, unique approach to thriving. Tune in, trust the compass of wisdom within, and find your fountain of vitality. Hello, my name is LaMont Leavitt, and welcome to the Fountain of Vitality podcast. We are thrilled today to have with us Jon Engelson. He's the Chief Strategic Officer of Joberg Meats. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be on the show.
I'd love to hear your story and how you got involved with this, and love to hear some great stories too about how people have changed their diet, changed their health and their outlook on life, and improved their longevity through what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Well, pleasure. So just a little background. I'm from Los Angeles originally. Grew up there. I went to school at UC San Diego. I was all my family were doctors. My father actually taught medicine at USC Medical School also.
Nice.
And so I grew up in this atmosphere. I was pre-med at UC San Diego, but at the time I didn't have the studious temperament to. I was more in the water than in the books, as they say.
Oh, that'd be tough. That's such a beautiful place to be in the water. I'd have the same challenge.
Yeah. So it was that was the challenge there. But anyway, I did with a degree in economics, but I was always obsessed by health and nutrition. So actually, in my mid-20s, I had a misdiagnosis, thankfully, from some of the best doctors in the world, and that led me on like a journey of I always deep down felt there was other things than the allopathic world, and I started to learn diet. I learned macrobiotics. I started to learn homeopathy. I started to learn herbal. Started to learn about vitamins, and I just kind of was an open book, and I got into many of these practices personally and my family. And then when my son, who was 4 years old, at nursery school started coming home with rashes, I was like, how come they don't have healthy snacks? They're eating always this stuff with junk in the school. So
Yeah.
I was at the time I was in investment business. I had a Series 3 license in that, but I was like always entrepreneurial. And I told my wife, I said, why don't they have healthy snacks in the schools? We should get them in. And that was how I founded You Are What You Eat, which was founded in 1990. And we, with the principle of getting healthy snacks into schools, which turned out to actually get them in all over in the mass market. And we built an Inc. 500 fastest growing company 8 years later. And then I've been really in this space ever since. I got out of that company in the early 2000s, and then I've been involved with consulting and bringing many products to the market. And then ultimately, about 3 years ago, met these guys at Joburg, actually in the community, and I said, "Listen, I've been in this space for a while. Maybe I could come and take a look and help consult a little bit." So I started out as a part-time consultant, but after about 6 months, we just hit it off all together, and we've been building. And I took more of a permanent role, which I love, and building good, healthy, minimally processed ingredients beautiful, easy snacks that you can take away, high protein, no sugar, no carbs, and the four ingredients, and glatt kosher, halal, and we've just been scaling ever since. So
That's awesome.
that's a
Well,
little of the story.
tell me a little bit about the meat from Joburg Meats, and tell me why not just good meat, but real meat that's prepared properly and doesn't have a lot of extra stuff in it is so good for you.
Okay, so first of all, and this is this is the journey of just information, and I would say like this, like so I come from I got into macrobiotics, which is like almost very little meat for a period of time, and there's a lot of information out there, and at the time it was like, oh, it didn't seem like meat was that good for you, and then but when you analyzed it, where is this coming from? It was just like it was all marketing basically. And a few years ago, I stepped out of it. I was always educating myself, and then I found out, somebody told me somebody cured themselves of a lot of metabolic issues by being on basically what they called carnivore diet, strict. They went without,
Uh-huh.
they went without any type of other, any fruits, vegetables, carbs, and they were, or very little or minimal, and they reversed their diabetes, they reversed their um, uh, uh, um, high blood pressure, they lost weight, they felt great, and I was like, what? Where did this come? So I started looking, and by the way, this is just a tidbit. If you want to learn about any particular genre, you're like interested in something, Google is not the right place. The right place is YouTube, because Google will give you a very skewed information, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But YouTube is just people talking, and then you have testimonials, and that's what I looked at. So when I went to carnivore and looked at people, I was like, okay. At the first of all, when you hear people talk about their stories and how they fixed themselves or did a lot better, you're like looking, where's the punchline for the sale, and I was like, no, they just finished the video, they didn't have an 800
Yeah.
number. So that was the first key. The second was, I looked at the reviews, when people with the comments, and one after the other goes, oh, I helped myself, I did this, I fixed this, I fixed that, with this type of a diet. So I was like, wow, this is quite remarkable. And so I would like to say that I've just been a student of, and stayed open minded. And I think because I didn't go into one particular, I wasn't pigeonholed into this particular part. The problem with medicine is that people learn a certain dogma, and then it's hard for them to be open to other things. And I think the human being is extremely complex, obviously, and we have to be open to many, many different ways in which different people react differently to different foods and different, medicines and ways of life and healing. And through that being said, you know, once you get into a particular area of study, you know, and become obsessed, like I found when I studied homeopathy, then the homeopathists don't like the herbalists. The herbalists don't like the homeopathists. Nobody likes the vitamin people. It's just like, and I was like, you know,
Have all
I
these camps.
yeah, everybody's in their camp, and the vegans don't like the meat. The meat, and I'm like, listen, here's the thing with all of this, and and even when I do my health seminars, I start with two words: what works. Those are the two words, are the key words, in my opinion, in this. Now, I've seen things work for people, and for myself, and some things work better than others, but that's the bottom line. And I and I can tell you this, anecdotal testing um, in this area is much, much more, in my opinion, stronger than what they would call double blind testing.
Double blind, yeah.
Because the reason is simply, if you speak to somebody who was X, they had this particular ailments, and they said they did Y, and now they're Z, that's a proof to me that they did that. And I'm not saying that that would work for everybody, but they did that. When you take tests, when you go into like a double blind testing, I had clients, many clients, we put them on specific, changes in their diets, and they could barely hold to that. So if they say like for 60 days these people only ate like this, I would be very suspect, because what else did they eat? Did they eat like
How do
that?
you monitor? Yeah.
You can't monitor that. And then you come back with the results. These people only ate meat and pomegranate for 60. You believe that? Nobody could, 180 people did it. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
And the other thing with double blind testing too, or they're given a placebo, what they don't take into account that maybe there's some belief in faith healing that happens where they take the placebo and they get better because they believe they're going to get better.
100%. And by the way, the mind, people, it's extremely powerful, and the attitude, and that's why there's a lot of things involved here, because and then I started looking at cultures. Like, you would look at like Italians who eat a lot of uh, carbs and breads and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and they are very healthy. But the breads they eat are very different than what are here. They're not
Right.
they're not with bromide. They're not enriched. And the enriching is just putting chemicals back into the. Why do you have to enrich something if it has some nutrition in it? you know.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the first thing. So you look at cultures, and when they eat, it's more of a spiritual event, because you sit for a couple of hours, and you make toast, and you don't eat this fast food culture that we have in America.
It's not like you got 15 minutes and move on to the next activity.
Exactly. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not how food is supposed to be. Food is a joy. So that is so I call that the placebo of food, is that and if you're on a particular diet and every minute you're anguished, if I don't do this, if I don't do that, that can't be good for you either. So
Yeah.
we need to put that in perspective, and at the same time, we also need to put in that if people think these, in the allopathic world, they have all these, standards and numbers. And do you if a human being's blood pressure, everyone should be 120 over 80. To me, it's like the most ridiculous. That's like saying everybody should be 6'2" and 185 pounds. How is that possible? Now, I'm not saying somebody
Yeah.
has, God forbid, 200, blood pressure, but
Plus.
120, 130, 140. This is not, these are not big deals. So people, have to understand that we're all built differently. And I remember my grandmother, she should uh, rest in soul, that rest in peace. 93, doing phenomenal. And the doctor says I have high blood pressure. I said, you know why? Because you're alive. Thank God. 93, going beautifully. Okay. What do you? Of course, they go to the doctor's going to tell them a million things. But thank God, they're doing
Yeah.
great. So anyway, that's a little bit of story, and that's how I got into the meat aspect. And so I was very excited to be involved with a company that was producing very high quality meat, number one, and in a high quality way. And this is when what we do over, let's say, jerky is built biltong is a method of producing meat with very little processing, because it's air dried. So you dry it. You basically goes in a cooler for like 10 days to 2 weeks, and that locks in the flavor, and it locks in the all the nutrients. So it's not cooked, which can reduce that. or dry it out, and then they have to add other things in it, and they add sugar and this and all these other things in most of the jerkies. And so it's just really, and then we just add some salt, apple cider vinegar, and and we spice it up in different ways. So it's only four ingredients, and we have five flavors right now, which are original, cracked pepper, peri peri, chili bites, and black truffle. And we have a bunch of new products and things on the way. We're working on charcuteries, some beef sticks that will be, again, clean ingredients. And so it's very exciting for the company. We have a plant. We have the only USDA glatt kosher halal certified plant, in the country. So it's in New Haven.
Well, tell us more about that. I
Sure.
mean, that the certified plant. What makes that unique, and how that makes it different than all the other jerkies you might buy off your grocery
So
store
sure.
shelf?
So there's obviously many certified USDA plants, but being what's called glatt kosher, which is a particular standard of kosher that's really the highest level, which means that all the meat has to be processed in and slaughtered in a certain way, and it can't have any type of defects or flaws. And so it's like, they have to go through more of it to get the good part, so to speak. If there's any issue with the lungs, glatt mean in Hebrew, glatt means smooth. If something's wrong, they have to check the lungs, and if there's of the animal, and if there's an issue, then the animal would not pass the test.
Okay.
So it has to go through that, and so that, having those combination, then we have a USDA officer sitting in the plant all the time, keeping us very much in line. And so those two combinations between the rabbinical supervision and the USDA, provide, really the highest quality uh,
Okay.
possible.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Well, so that's on the processing part. What about the source or the meat, where the cattle
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
from, or what they're fed,
yeah.
that
So
kind of
we
thing?
sourced most of our cattle in Uruguay because they have big farms, pasture raised, and grass fed, and they're in a much more open environment, and
Uruguay is a beautiful, beautiful
correct,
country.
correct,
Uruguay, Paraguay, even Argentina's got some great beef
correct,
areas as well.
correct. So
Yeah.
that's where we really source, and they have set up um, kosher farms there, so that we can get the meat from there, bring it into our plant, and then do what we need to do at the plant once we have the you know
Okay.
the barrels of meat that comes in. But yes, we sourced
Okay.
it there. That's been really a good source for us.
Okay. And so it's grass fed
Correct.
then.
Yes.
Your
Yeah.
cattle. That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And so it comes out soft and tender, and just flavorful, and it really makes a great snack on the road. When you're traveling airplane. And it's light and it won't melt. So, or won't freeze either. So it has a lot of versatility to it. Well, I guess it's extremely cold, but not. You can take it on the ski slope at 20, 30 degrees. It's not going to freeze.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. How so from Uruguay, now you got your meat, it's grass fed, it's great, and getting it to the US, how long does that take? I assume that's by boat, or and you
Yeah.
have
So again, they have the distribution path. They're set up where they bring a large amount into the states, and the other kosher factories are using the meat for other products. So it's a large. They've developed quite a large operation, and then so we get what we need for uh, our products, and then we buy it lots and lots of, slabs, so to
Yeah.
speak. And then we at our plant, then we have to do, we have to dry it, or if we're making charcuterie, we turn it into all the different possibilities. So we basically get it, in large slabs, and then we cut it up, and then we make it into exactly, and then we have the machinery that can cut it. We have drying rooms, and the whole ball of wax.
Whole shebang. Yeah, that's awesome. Could you share one or two stories of people that have changed their diet using good, the right meat or good meat for you guys, and it's so much better to snack on something like that versus all the chemical created snacks that are on the grocery store shelves today. Any stories you can share
Well,
with
yeah,
us about
sure. I
that?
mean, I got a number. There have been a number of people. Um, a matter of fact, there was a young um, person that we had met. He was in his early 20s, and he had been battling Crohn's disease for quite a while. And he went to all the nothing helped him. And I met him at an event, and we just started talking, and he was telling me that he started to improve dramatically. He changed by eating only meat and certain fruits. So he changed his diet dramatically, and the doctors couldn't believe it. So this is a person I met, directly, who changed, a really troubling disease that he battled for many, many years. Now, I've had many.
Yeah, Crohn's is tough. Crohn's is a
It's a
tough
tough.
disease.
Now, again, I want to make a disclaimer. It,
Right.
this is. I'm just giving you anecdotal, stories. But I saw so many of these. Now, I saw numerous people, particularly with metabolic issues, which is really, the challenge of our times. That people are either the diabetic, pre-diabetic, A1Cs, which is the diabetic score, hovering in the high fives, either on the verge or more. And just by reducing the amount of really processed foods and moving toward whole foods, meat included, has helped many people either reverse their pre-diabetics, or even type 2 diabetics have been I've seen many reverse their type 2 diabetics. And
Wow.
people say, oh, they're very skeptical, but I mean, I don't know how many. You could go and find 1,000 YouTube videos of people who've done it. I mean, it's not so. I mean, if 20% are BSing, I mean, I can't tell you, but I've seen it. I don't know why people would do something like that. But if people are improving their diets, and then improving their health, this is a fact. That's all. They
Yeah.
have more energy. So triglyceride counts have been helped. Blood pressure has been helped. Overall energy, because the bottom line is that I think the sugar is the the abundant. Look, at we're not perfectionists. Tastes great. I mean, nobody denies it. But the overabundance that we've been given, it's just it's ridiculous. The amounts that kids eat, and it starts there, and then it becomes addiction, and then all of a sudden, now kids, this whole thing with ADD and ADHD. I've seen a lot of kids, help themselves by parents changing their diets. And so that's another area, which is, growing up. Did you see many kids ADD or ADHD? We didn't even have that.
Well, we didn't. It wasn't talked about. Maybe we had it, but part of it I know was just it was okay to be rambunctious and bouncing off the walls a little bit as a young
Sure,
teenage boy,
sure.
and we were just active, but curious on life and trying new things and um, trying to build ramps, jumping random things with your bikes and um, some people might call that, ADHD because we were always busy. But anyway, yeah. But I think there's more with. I think diet is contributing a lot more than we realize to some of these conditions that I know that they want to get a handle on. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, the whole thing, the whole system, like Food and Drug Administration, that's already an oxymoron. What does food have to do with drugs? But what's going on here is that the food, that should be a separate department. But what's going on here is you have the food that is so bad, so it leads to people to the drugs, and I unfortunately, I wanted to give a lot of uh, leeway and like not think that people are clandestine and all this type of stuff. But like the more I go, the more I see, it's like big companies. The more they can reduce the quality of their product, that's how they make more money. So um, whatever and that's whatever it takes, and that's really unfortunate. There's a company called Naked Juice. You might have heard of it.
yeah.
Okay, so Naked Juice was founded by two of my friends in junior high and high school named Jimmy Rosenberg and David Bleeden. And they founded the company, and they used to bring fresh juice from the farm and go to the beach in Southern California and sell it on the beach. They would bring these coolers.
Well, that's how it started. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and so then they built it. They in their early 20s they started selling to stores, and they built it up. And in their mid 20s they got an offer from Dole for $1 million each, and they took it. you know. And Jimmy, they had to sign a 5-year non-compete agreement, and they probably could have held out for more, but they wanted the money at the time. And so two things in this. Jimmy started a new company called Evolution Fresh, which turned out to be a huge company in which Starbucks bought for 50 or $60 million, maybe 10, 12 years ago. That's in all the Starbucks juice. You see Evolution Fresh and Whole Foods.
Oh,
So
okay.
he started that company after that. But the point I wanted to make is once Dole got to it, if you look on the ingredients on a Naked Juice, you're going to see natural flavors and from concentrate on many of them. That would never, ever, ever have been the original owners.
That wasn't the formula to start
No
with.
way. Because all that is, why would you have to put a natural flavor in juice? And why would you have to concentrate it, which takes out you know, all the pulp, all the possibility. Already, it reduces the health benefits by juicing because you reduce the fiber, you reduce the but to make it with concentrate, that's just unheard of. So that's what they do. That's the only way they can make more money by reducing the quality of the ingredient. This happens to all these big companies, whether it's Quaker Oats or you name it, and grains happen to be the cheapest product, and they can put a few grains together and destroy the fields and all the nutrition that the grains have, and put it in a box that put a heart on it and sell it for $7.
Yeah. Yeah, and there really is a truth to this statement of "you are what you eat." Understand the food you're eating and look at the ingredients closer. One thing I have liked about AI is I can actually look at a container and say, okay, what is actually in this, whether it's meat or a vegetable or fruit product, and find out, okay, what are these chemicals? Do they need to be
Correct.
there or not?
Well, look at the bottom line is 100 years ago or more. I mean, there were no such thing. It was just food, and many of these things that
Yeah,
we have today don't. Uh, there was not the diabetes, all these type of metabolic challenges that we have today. These just didn't exist. And I remember my great
yeah,
grandmother, at 102, and she's eating, eggs every day, and there was no issue with that. And the eggs happened to be one of the. It's so funny. Eggs were good, then they weren't good. Then the yolks were good. The oaks aren't good. And the bottom line, eggs are a phenomenal food, and the cholesterol thing is I mean, in my opinion, is hyperbolized because it brought a whole industry of billion-dollar industry with statins, and
Uh-huh.
so they just like that's the whole food and drug link, okay, all of a sudden you have this, you have that, you have this, and they lower the bar, it used to be at 50 or 60, you need this, now it's 40, this, they keep lowering the bar for all these because that's how they grow their businesses. The bottom line is this, is that God willing, if you're healthy, there's no money in medicine, right? If everybody is healthy, it would be zero money. There would be zero need for doctors, zero
Right.
need for that would put that business out of business. And if you take away the junk food and you say, oh, people, that will put people out of business. So that's the challenge today.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm excited to try your. Thank you for shipping a sample. Any of our listeners that have that want to try some of their meat, at the end of this recording, we'll have or the bottom of the website, 15% off a link where you can get some meat and try it out. Some real good stuff. So, hey, thanks so much for your time today. Thank you for tuning in to the Fountain of Vitality podcast. Head to fountainofvitality.com for more episodes, insights, and resources. Remember, your health is yours to own. Take charge, focus on what you can control, and keep exploring what works for you. Always be your best self, lift others, and trust the compass of wisdom. Until next time, stay vibrant and take care.